G'day and a very warm welcome to episode 19 of Travel Pointers, the podcast for Australian frequent flyers. It's the 15th of September 2015 and I'm Matt Graham, the editor of AFF. Wilson McTaggart is away this episode, but instead I'll be joined shortly by a special guest from Singapore Airlines. We'll have a chat about the recent Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer program changes, Kris Plus, how Singapore Airlines and KrisFlyer compete in Australia against two very dominant local players, and lots more. That interview is coming up shortly, but first, just a few of the latest headlines from the world of airlines and loyalty programs in Australia. American Express membership rewards will increase the number of points you need to transfer to 7 of its airline partner programs from the 15th of December 2025. And from that date, it will also axe Thai Royal Orchid Plus as a transfer partner. But it will introduce Everyday Rewards as a new partner, which gives kind of a backdoor way to transferring Amex points into Qantas Frequent Flyer. Meanwhile, Qantas has devalued its Classic Plus rewards in international premium cabins and without telling anyone. Instead of 1.5 cents per Qantas point worth of value on those redemptions, you'll now get just 1.25 cents per Qantas point. Cash Rewards, a website that let you earn cash back on online shopping purchases, suddenly shut down last Monday without warning. If you have money sitting in a Cash Rewards account, you can still withdraw it until the 24th of October 2025. And after that, there will still be a process that you can follow, but it will be a manual one. Lufthansa City Airlines has become the newest member of Star Alliance. The regional subsidiary of Lufthansa operates short-haul flights within Europe. Jetstar has announced that it will install business class seats on its new Airbus A321XLRs when these get delivered from around 2027. These are going to be used on sort of medium-haul international routes, and these seats are expected to be similar to what you'd find in Emirates Premium Economy, which we talked about in a recent episode of this podcast. Qantas has also announced that it will install lie-flat business seats on its next batch of A321XLRs, which could open up routes like Canberra and Adelaide to Singapore for the Flying Kangaroo. And Qantas will shortly put the A321XLR into service, the first batch, without the lie-flat business seats, on domestic routes. China Southern is massively expanding the number of flights it operates into Australia and adding a new route as well from Guangzhou to Darwin. Virgin Australia has taken delivery of its first Embraer E190-E2, which will be based in Perth. The Australian government has opened up consultation about its proposed aviation consumer protections in Australia, including the introduction of an aviation ombuds scheme to the general public. You can have your say until the 26th of October. And Emirates has stopped allowing its Skywards members to redeem Skywards miles for first-class Classic Reward seats and upgrades for children under 8 years old. So if you may remember, Emirates stopped allowing its base-level members to redeem for first class at all, or first-class reward seats a little while back. But this now affects reward seats and upgrades for members with Skyward status, for children under 8. It's a bit of a controversial policy. I don't think any other airline has banned mileage redemptions for children before. I'm joined on today's episode by Udhara de Silva, who is the head of loyalty marketing and strategy for Singapore Airlines in Australia. Now, Singapore Airlines, as you know, is not an Australian airline, but it is a dominant player in the international space in Australia. And I wanted to start, Udhara, by asking you about how sort of Singapore Airlines and KrisFlyer can compete with our local players, Qantas and Velocity, when they're so dominant in the market, particularly in the loyalty landscape.
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, Matt, thank you for having me on the show. On behalf of Singapore Airlines, very, very excited to be here. I think it's our very first appearance on your show. And thank you for having us.
Great to have you on.
Thank you. So you ask a very interesting question. And I think the way we look at it is that we're very fortunate to play in a mature, sophisticated, and rich loyalty landscape. And you know all about this. We're not necessarily fighting to grow our slice of a small pie. And I think there's genuinely distinct value in each of the main FFPs in Australia. And that's why we have a great partnership with Velocity, where you can not only earn and spend your miles across each other's flights, but we have regular offers. At the moment, as of the 9th of September, we have a massive global redemption sale across KrisFlyer that's live, and one of our partners in the campaign is Velocity. So you can convert your KrisFly miles to Velocity with a 20% bonus. Velocity runs regular bonus points campaigns on Singapore Airlines. And we have a fantastic and unique partnership where you can exchange miles between programs. So there's the partnership with Velocity. We have built, as you said, over several decades, a fantastic network to all major Australian cities and connecting Australia to 120 plus different destinations in 37 countries. And with that network, I think comes plenty of inventory to get the seat that you want with your miles across all four cabins. And not just the cabin you want, but also the time you want. So there's heaps of flexibility. And then on top of that, and this is part of the work that my team does, is to build a thriving non-air miles ecosystem, which we've been cultivating in Australia, I believe, since 2004 with our very first bank partnership here in Australia with ANZ. And since then, we've rolled out partnerships with all major Australian banks. And this is besides, the big global partnerships with Amex. We've got a world first credit card with Star Alliance and HSBC. And most recently, as of late 2023, Kris Plus, which lets you instantly earn and spend miles in hundreds of stores between Sydney, Melbourne, and Singapore.
Yeah, you've touched on two of the reasons that I personally do recommend KrisFlyer to a lot of people. Just the fact that you can earn miles through so many Australian credit cards, and also just the inventory, like the availability of award seats, even in business class, out of Australia from, I think you fly to, is it 7 Australian airports?
That's right.
Which I think it might be even more than Qantas, more international airports in Australia than Qantas serves with international flights. So
Wow.
it's, and with multiple frequencies a day and good
Mhm.
availability. So yeah, that is one of the reasons I personally do recommend KrisFlyer to a lot of people. But just on presence in Australia, do you have many elite members or PPS club members who are based in Australia who choose to go with Singapore Airlines rather than Qantas or Velocity? And like, what do you think sort of drives them to choose KrisFlyer?
Yeah, we do. So maybe a bit of background. So we reached the 10 million member mark globally back in March, and we did a massive campaign to celebrate that milestone. And in Australia, we have the next largest base of KrisFly members outside of Singapore.
Really?
We have close to 2 million members.
Wow.
And as you know, through the mechanics of the program, we encourage our members to be very active with us, either earning miles or spending miles. That percentage is incredibly high. And out of the base of KrisFlyer members, we have a significant chunk who are not only Elite Silver, Elite Gold, but also PPS. And within the PPS base, as you might know, there's two separate tiers. There's the standard PPS club member, through which you need to spend 25K Sing on our premium cabins. And then you have solitaires, which spend 50K on our cabins. And we have a sizable chunk of them on their base as well. So I think just to tie it up together, the KrisFlyer member in Australia gets access to great inventory. They're the only FFP member that'll get access to First and Suites, which is our flagship product, flying from Sydney, Melbourne. They get more ways to earn KrisFlyer miles on the ground, whether it's through credit cards or Kris Plus. And I think increasingly, and this is a growing but niche segment of our value proposition in Australia, is things like money can't buy experiences, whether it's invite-only events to our PPS club members or KrisFly experiences, which are curated experiences we have started doing since, I believe, late 2022 in Australia. And we've since scaled it up to be more exclusive, more interesting, more curated than ever before. And so there's many ways for the KrisFly member to interact with us. Obviously, the prime reason being for those flights.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned before Kris Plus. So this launched a few years ago in Australia. How does it work?
Kris Plus is our digital rewards app. It's a part of the KrisFlyer ecosystem, and how it works is it's an app. You can download it for free on the App Store, and it allows you to, through a QR code mechanism, instantly earn or instantly spend your miles at checkout at hundreds of cafes, bars, restaurants, and shops. It's been around in Singapore for about 6 years, and we brought it to market, first market outside of Singapore, actually, back in late 2023 to Sydney and Melbourne. We started, I believe, with 40 odd partners, such as the iconic Brunetti Cafe on Flinders Lane in Melbourne, and Chat Thai in Sydney, which is a really popular Thai food chain. And we've since scaled that. As of today, we have just over 210 partners. We do all the business development ourselves, and that just means that we can really curate the earn construct, the offers, the exclusive deals you'll get, which you can purchase through the Kris Plus app. And ultimately, for the very savvy audience and community of the Australian frequent flyer platform, what it means is you can supercharge your miles balance very easily. And just a little hack as well for Kris Plus users, if you happen to use a rewards earning credit card as your form of payment on Kris Plus, you are double dipping your rewards. You're not only earning the points on the card, you're also earning the points through Kris Plus. And so, it's a really gamified, instant, everyday spend element to the KrisFlyer program, and our growing base of users just love it. You see the engagement go through the roof, and you see multiple transactions happening every day per user, and we're just bringing more and more people to the platform over time.
I've actually found a third reason to use Kris Plus. So
Oh, tell
obviously,
me.
yeah. So I love the fact that you can earn the Kris. I think you earn Kris Pay miles, and then you can choose to
Yes.
redeem them in the app or transfer them to your
Yeah.
KrisFlyer account, which is what I personally do. I love Lulu's Char Kway Teow in Melbourne on Hardware Lane, one of my
Great
favorite
spot.
restaurants in Melbourne. They take Kris Plus, and if you pay using Kris Plus, they actually waive the credit card surcharge. So you
Yes.
actually end up saving a little bit of money as well.
Exactly. And on top of that, we've managed to secure really good exclusive discounts as well for Kris
Mm.
Plus users. For the longest time, Brunetti, for I think a couple of years, were offering 10% off. No
Oh.
minimum spend. They've changed that slightly, so you still get 10% off their delicious birthday cakes and their tarts and their desserts. So you'll see more of that over time as we scale Kris Plus across Sydney and Melbourne, and eventually our long-term aim is to be present across Australia.
Mm. Now, Singapore Airlines and KrisFlyer recently announced some changes to the KrisFlyer program. There's been a few good changes, a few bad changes. One of the good ones was the introduction of like an award chart and award
Mhm.
redemptions on Scoot,
Yes.
starting from a very low number. Is it 1,500 or
Yeah.
2,500 miles for the cheapest one? Uh, this is quite an interesting one because with the Scoot Award chart, like the lead-in number of KrisFlyer miles you need is very low, but then it's kind of taking the low-cost carrier model where you have to pay extra for baggage or seat selection, or if you want like a flexible fare. And I think these are non-refundable award tickets as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you talk us through like what the logic is behind that, and how's the uptake been so far on Scoot redemptions?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it's 2025 has been a really big year for KrisFlyer. And I think thanks to our, network of flights across AU between Singapore Airlines and Scoot, the earn and burn ecosystem, I think outside of Singapore, Australian KrisFlyer members probably stand to gain the most out of these changes. So let's zoom in on Scoot. So yes, as you said, as of I think mid-August, we have introduced an award chart very similar to what we have on Singapore Airlines, split between saver rates, which are the cheaper ones, a little bit more competitive in terms of finding those seats. But then if you can't find saver seats, we've got an advantage tier as well. And yes, you're right. As little as 1,500 miles will get you from Singapore to Malaysia, and as few as 12,000 or 13,000 miles will get you from Australia to Singapore. And then if you want to fly to Vienna and fly Scoot for I don't know 13 hours to Vienna or Athens, you can actually do it for the same rate as a saver on Singapore Airlines in economy class from Sydney to Singapore. So it just opens up a whole new world of possibilities. And if you know a little bit about the Scoot network, yes, we have flights from Perth, from Melbourne, from Sydney. But one of the real edges that Scoot has over Singapore Airlines actually is access to a lot of secondary destinations in Asia. So it's a really great way to explore parts of Asia that you might not have otherwise if you were, purely intent to fly SQ.
I think one of the ones that someone mentioned on AFF was Singapore to Lombok in Indonesia,
Right.
which is a route that Scoot flies, where the airfares are often quite expensive, but
Hmm.
it's like a ridiculously low number of miles if you're deemed through
Yeah.
KrisFlyer.
And
So that's
you being an av geek might know this better than I do, but I believe is it one of our Embraer aircraft that flies that?
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't check
Putting you on the
actually.
spot here.
I'm not sure. It might be. Yeah, one of the other changes was announced was the change to the Singapore Airlines and the Star Alliance and partner award charts.
Yes.
So the redemption rate, so the number of KrisFlyer miles you need when redeeming after the 1st of November, I believe,
Hmm.
is going to increase. There has been sort of, I think the last one was 3 years ago, and I guess
Yeah.
over the last decade, the number of KrisFlyer miles you do need for an award flight have been sort of slowly going up. Do you still think that KrisFlyer is competitive in the Australian market with the higher pricing?
I would hope so. And Matt, you're probably better equipped to answer this question, having such a big understanding of the holistic FFP options in Australia. But we would like to think so. I think the changes to the award chart. Maybe I'll just quickly run through some of the top level
Sure.
ones, starting with Star Alliance. So with Star Alliance, the increase in redemptions. I believe is about 5 to 6% in economy class and 10 to 11% in business and first. With the Singapore Airlines side, let's look at Saver and Advantage. So Saver actually for Australians is improving slightly. So Australia, New Zealand, economy class Saver is decreasing by about 5%. And with that, yeah, I think we're coming under the 30,000 mark
Mm,
for the first time from Sydney and Melbourne and the East Coast. Business first and suite saver redemption rates for zones one, which is Singapore, all the way up to zone nine, which is Australia and New Zealand, will increase by 5%. Hopefully, when you do the math and you see the actual miles required, it doesn't add up to too much. But I understand it's still an increase, right? And we haven't done that in 3 years. And what we hope, and I think based on the response from our customers and certainly publications like yourselves, it's a modest and somewhat kind of expected increase. What I will say is we continue not to charge surcharges and fees besides taxes across the SIA group. So I was looking at Sydney to London one way. Taxes are still under $200. That's
mm,
all you're paying on top of the miles. Okay,
mm,
so if you think about it this holistically, yes, the miles are more, but you're not paying much on surcharges. And then with our ecosystem to earn miles on the ground here, whether it's your Star Alliance credit card or Amex, coupled with Kris Plus, and at the moment we're running a massive 10 miles per dollar campaign till the end of September. We have Kris Plus challenges, which you activate and you get massive miles rebates. And in October, we celebrate our second birthday in Australia. And if you thought 10 miles per dollar was really good, I won't give you the exact amount, but watch this space. It's going to be even better.
mm.
So what we're trying to do is balance out that increase with value in terms of miles earned on the ground as well.
Mm. And I mean, I know that you didn't mention this, but I'll say it. Velocity and Qantas have themselves increased their redemption prices this year by, I think, more than what you guys have. And Qantas also just put up its carrier charges on classic reward seats in premium cabins. So uh, I guess the main thing though that Singapore Airlines really does have as well is that availability, like I mentioned
Yes.
before. And on the 1st of November, KrisFlyer is going to introduce a third tier of award seats, like
Yes.
the Access Awards. Now there has been some speculation on AFF that like that's kind of a like the intention for Singapore Airlines is to reduce the amount of Saver or Advantage availability and try to push people towards those higher price dynamic access awards. Hopefully that's not the case.
Yeah, no, no. Our intent is to introduce this as a new redemption category for flights, and it very much sits alongside Saver and Advantage, over and above. So the general principle is if there's a seat available, and you can't find Saver or Advantage, you will find an Access, and we are very careful and mindful of the fact that, and we take pride in the fact that we have inventory in Saver and Advantage.
Mm,
And so I think, 1st of November onwards, you'll see what that looks like in terms of rates. It's going to vary based on seasonality, based on demand on particular flights. But it really does open up the possibility to use your miles if you really have no other way to spend them and you're very keen to depart on a certain date and you have the extra miles to spend on those flights. So, what I can say is that's not our intent at all. It's meant to sit over and above the allocated inventory for Saver and Advantage.
that's great to know. I'm sure a lot
Yeah.
of AFF members will be relieved to hear
Yeah.
that.
What I
With
but
yeah,
while we're on the topic of the new award chart as well,
mm,
what I will also remind KrisFlyer members to do is if you do have plans to book your travel, the old rates are still valid until the
mm.
31st of October. And they will be honored at the old rates. So, if you're thinking about booking now, might be your best chance to get those old rates.
One of the other things that comes up often on the AFF forum is the hard 3-year fixed expiry of KrisFlyer miles. So for those who might not be familiar, like with KrisFlyer, the miles expire 3 years after they hit your account. So basically, the first ones in it are the first ones out when you redeem, and
Yes.
it's kind of a time stamping policy. A few other airlines like Air New Zealand, Emirates use the same policy. It does make it hard to save up those miles. Do you know? Does Singapore Airlines have any intention of changing that?
Not at this stage. So you're right. So there's a 3-year expiry policy for KrisFly members and PPS Club members who are also KrisFly members, by the way. They don't have expiring miles. So that's a kind of key distinguishing feature between the two streams of the program. From an Australian perspective, what I can say is we hope that with the availability of seats across Saver, Advantage, and soon Access, that in most cases members can find what they're looking for in time. On top of that as well, we've got this monthly campaign called Spontaneous Escapes, where we offer 30% off select destinations out of Australia to all over the world in multiple cabins for 30% off. That's a huge discount. That is for travel the next month. That's why it's called Spontaneous Escapes, but that's another option as well. And the other part of finding ways to spend miles is we have spent a lot of time over the past few years, both in Singapore and here in Australia, growing the non-air ecosystem. So ways to actually spend miles that you otherwise wouldn't spend on flights through the likes of Kris Plus, Pelago, which is our experiences platform. Kris Shop, if you happen to be flying and want to have model aircraft or batik label merch delivered to your flight on the way from Singapore. And so, and we have rooms as well. That's another one that I've used on occasion with my miles, where you can use miles to stay at thousands and thousands of hotel properties in Australia and beyond. So there's a few ways in which you can use your miles within those 3 years. But just a reminder to your audience, and I'm sure they don't need it. I'm sure they're very savvy with this. A couple of ways you can extend your miles validity is through your profile on KrisFlyer. You can extend them by 6 months for a small fee in blocks of 10,000 miles. And if you're a Elite Silver or Elite Gold member, you can actually extend them by an additional 12 months for a small fee as well. So that's one hack that is very much within the KrisFlyer miles ecosystem. But another way to do that is also to convert your miles to Kris Plus, where you can extend their shelf life by an additional 6 months and use them, for lunches or coffees or cinema tickets.
Now, it's that time of year, Udhara, when airlines like Singapore Airlines start running early bird sales. I believe that Singapore Airlines launched one last week to Europe, and it comes with some bonus miles attached.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we have our massive early bird sale in market at the moment, where you can get fantastic deals to SIA Group destinations. There's over 90 destinations between Europe, Asia, South Africa, and the US until the end of the month for travel between mid-January to mid-September next year. And what's really exciting, and I don't think we have done this, certainly not during the time I've been looking after loyalty, we're actually awarding 50% bonus KrisFlyer miles on flights booked to Europe on Singapore Airlines operated flights. So what that looks like, we did the math, we did a few calculations. At the very least, you can get yourself a Perth to Indonesia redemption with Scoot Saver if you book the cheapest possible ticket under the early bird sale from Perth, right? At the higher end, if you book a business class ticket, you're looking at the ability to book a one-way flight from Singapore to India in business class, and you'll earn even more miles, and have even more coverage in terms of redemption options if you book first. And then if we look at the non-air side of our of SIA Group, 50% bonus miles can get you anywhere between $110 and $480 worth of miles to spend on Kris Plus, Pelago, or Kris Shop. So that is some pretty good value on top of those really good prices. So I would highly recommend if you have members who are looking to actually buy flights to get some miles to save for those redemptions, now's the time to do so.
Now, the aviation industry is one that we obviously both love. How did you get into it?
I have always been an av geek ever since I was a little kid. I didn't study aviation. I didn't intend to work in aviation from the very beginning. I worked in another life. I used to work in the digital media space. But a few years ago, I saw an ad come up for the Singapore Airlines Management Trainee Program. This is about 6 years ago, and it's a really comprehensive career immersion into all things aviation. You start out by being placed in specific departments. For in Singapore Airlines Australia, we have quite a large footprint here in terms of the offices we have and the different departments we have. We're like a mini Singapore in that sense. And I did a couple of rotations. I started in agency sales, then I moved into a department called sales planning. And about three and a half years ago, I was given the opportunity to move into the loyalty space and look after this team. And we started out with just myself and one other team member, and we've since scaled up to about 9 staff. And that is a testament to how much we are committed to the KrisFlyer value proposition in Australia, particularly around non-air partnerships and giving our members more ways to earn and spend their miles.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely shows like the KrisFlyer has got that commitment to Australia. I want to finish by asking you the same thing that I asked Nick Rolick from Velocity when he came on, and that's if you had the opportunity tomorrow to fly to anywhere in the world on any type of plane, what would you choose?
Oh my gosh, we could spend hours discussing this point, but I think the first idea that comes to mind is probably Istanbul. It's one of my favorite cities in the
Mm.
world. It's pretty easy to get to on SQ. We fly A350s to Istanbul as of couple of years ago when we phased out the old 777s. And I love the A350 because it kind of takes all the best bits of the A380, which is, my second favorite aircraft. Big windows, comfortable cabins, great layout. And you end up just from the cabin pressure and all those kind of technicalities of making you feel comfortable, you land feeling very refreshed. And I just love those beautiful wingtips.
Great answer. And I'll just mention as well, as some of our listeners will be aware, AFF is hosting the annual member gathering in Melbourne on the 21st to the 23rd of November. And one of the highlights of that weekend is the dinner on the Saturday night, which will be at Hyatt Centric. And Udara will be a guest speaker and in attendance at the dinner. So if you have some questions you'd like to ask to Udara or want to have a chat, he'll be there and we would love to see you.
Thank you,
Thank
Matt. With that, very much looking forward to being there. I just want to say, you've cultivated a fantastic community over the past 10 years. I think you've been editing Australian Frequent Flyer. I think it's so awesome that you have people from all over Australia flying to spend a whole weekend together. I mean, I haven't seen anything like that in other kind of industry forums. So I think it's really awesome. you've cultivated that. And yeah, really looking forward to connecting with yourself and all of the AFF community members who will be there.
Well, thank you very much. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And thank you so much for joining me today on the Travel Pointers podcast.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that discussion with Udhara de Silva. Before I finish up this episode, I just wanted to give you a little bit of feedback from the last episode. We've had a few people write in about our last episode on hotel loyalty programs on the Travel Pointers discussion thread on the AFF forum, and we really appreciate that. Thanks very much for getting in touch. And yeah, just a bit of feedback. The first comment comes from member Tony NHE, and this person says, just finished episode 18. One thing I think might be worth pointing out is that booking through fine hotels and resorts and paying at the hotel would actually qualify for status nights. So if you have hotel status and book through fine hotels and resorts, which comes with, I think, the Amex Platinum card, would mean that the benefits can really add up. For most of the time, at least for Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt, the fine hotels and resorts rate is the same as the member rate. So you also get the guaranteed 4 p.m. checkout and $100 credit at the hotel, which is a really good deal. Yep, definitely agree. For those of you who have access to that, it can be very worthwhile. Thanks for that comment. Level 9 said, I think the episode might have benefited from a bit of an overview of the hotel loyalty space to set the scene. For example, most of the major programs, Hilton, Marriott, and Hyatt, are American programs developed first and foremost for the American market. Yep, Level 9, totally agree. Very good point. And Level 9 continues, as a result, the reason why Australians generally should focus on status rather than points with hotels is that the points are primarily earned through US credit cards. It also means that for status, the further you are away from American travelers, the better your benefits will be. And that's why Asia, like Japan, for example, is considered to be the sweet spot for status recognition in hotel programs. And it also explains the move to dynamic pricing on awards because there's too many points chasing too few properties. And it explains why Hyatt has kept its award chart for now and has better elite recognition, being that Hyatt has a smaller footprint than Hilton and Marriott, so attempts to compete for American customers on status benefits and better points prices. And that's very different from the airline loyalty space where most of the the Australian programs have been designed from the ground up for Australians. Yeah, thank you very much for that comment, Level 9. And yeah, I totally agree. The hotel programs, like the main ones like Hilton, Marriott, Hyatt, IHG, are pretty much designed for the American market. I completely agree. And yeah, I also completely agree. The further you are away from the US and from where US travelers are, the better the benefits will be, just because there's fewer people that have status. Like I find some of the best status recognition myself in hotel loyalty programs is in places like the Middle East or Central Asia, for example. So yeah, thanks for that comment. And there's also finally just a question from a member, Montefiore Jackie. I hope I pronounced that right. And this person says, Matt, you kind of contradicted yourself. Thanks for calling me out. You said IHG status is in your top 2 favorites, but then you went on to say that you would choose Hilton as your preferred Velocity status match benefit to take. And why is that? Yeah, great question. So the thing is, it's not really a like-for-like comparison. So when you have Velocity Platinum status, you can choose to get the match to either Hilton Diamond or IHG One Rewards Platinum. And if you have Velocity Gold, you can choose between Hilton Gold and IHG Gold. Now, Hilton Diamond is the top status level in the Hilton program, and Hilton Gold is the second top in the Hilton program. Whereas with the IHG program, the top IHG status is Diamond, but that's not what's actually being offered in the Velocity status match. So if you have like Velocity Platinum, you get matched to IHG Platinum, which is actually kind of, I would say it's actually worse than Hilton Gold in terms of the benefits. For me, like IHG Diamond status with the Lounge Access Milestone Reward is like a really useful combination of hotel loyalty benefits, but that's not actually what you're getting with the Velocity match. So, for example, if you have Hilton Diamond status, you get executive lounge access at Hilton hotels, breakfast, room upgrades, things like that. With Gold status, you still get breakfast and upgrades at Hilton hotels with Hilton. Whereas with IHG, the IHG Platinum tier does not even come with breakfast. So because it's not actually their top level, it's the second top one. And so for that reason, the Hilton benefits you get with this particular match are actually probably better. That said, I personally actually chose IHG for my match when I did have Velocity status, just because I looked at my upcoming travel plans for that particular year and I was going to be staying in more IHG hotels than Hilton hotels. But it really depends what works best for you. Just in terms of the benefits you get for for the tiers that are actually matched. Hilton is probably the better of the two in general for most people. Just finally for this episode, I wanted to give a huge thank you to all of our listeners who came to the AFF Masterclass in Sydney on the 6th of September. That was a great day. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed getting the chance to meet and talk to a lot of you as well. Now, this was our first ever in-person AFF Masterclass, but I don't think it will be the last one. The feedback we got from that day was very positive, and because of that, we do plan to make these a regular fixture on the AFF calendar from next year. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for details about the next one, and it'll be great to see you there as well. And in the meantime, you can also read about other AFF events that are coming up on our meetings and social events forum on the Australian Frequent Flyer forum, including the annual member gathering in Melbourne, which we have coming up from the 21st to the 23rd of November, where you'll be able to meet myself, Wilson as well, the co-host of this podcast, Udhara de Silva, who was on today, and many other like-minded people who are interested in flying and frequent flyer programs. And a lot of the best tips, which are just too good to broadcast in a podcast or to publish on the website, often get shared at these kinds of meetups. So if you want to up your frequent flyer game, definitely worth coming along. And as we said before, Udhara will be one of the guest speakers we have lined up on the Saturday night dinner on that weekend. That'll be at the Hyatt Centric Hotel in Melbourne. We do have another guest speaker as well, who is also an expert in loyalty programs. So it should be a really interesting night. Well, that brings me to the end of this episode of Travel Pointers. Thanks very much for listening. See you in the next episode, and until then, happy flying.